Game development explained. No theory, just what works.
All right, let's get right into it. Have you ever been on a team that just feels like it's spinning its wheels? Everyone's working super hard, but nothing seems to actually move forward. Well, if that sounds familiar, this one's for you. We're going to dive into a really powerful process called triage.
Let's kick things off with a quote that, it might hit a little too close to home for some of us. A packed sprint can still be a slow sprint. That just perfectly captures that feeling, right? That frustration when everyone looks busy, the board is full, but real progress? It just feels completely stalled. So let me just ask you straight up. Does your team feel like this? You look at the task board and it is packed with tickets. Everybody's putting in the hours. But then Friday rolls around and the actual product, the thing you're building, it feels pretty much the same as it did on Monday. If that rings a bell, trust me, you are not alone. There's actually a name for this whole phenomenon. We're going to call it the busy but slow trap. And it's super common. And man, is it frustrating for any team to get stuck in.
And the symptoms? They're always the same, aren't they? The task board looks so impressive, like a testament to your team's ambition. But the actual build? It barely improves. Work just gets stuck in that in progress column for what feels like an eternity. The same annoying blockers pop up again and again, and those risks, the ones you talk about in meetings, they just kind of vanish back into the noise until, bam, they blow up into a full-blown crisis.
Okay, so what's really going on here? What's the root cause? Well, it's pretty interesting. Your backlog really has two completely different jobs. On one hand, it's like a library for all your great ideas, a place for future possibilities. But on the other hand, it's supposed to be an execution plan for what to do right now. The trap springs when we mix those two things up. The team starts treating everything in there like it's equally important, and poof, you lose all sense of priority. So the big question is, how do you get out of this trap? The answer is a process called triage. So let's break down what that actually means.
Triage is designed to solve this exact problem. It's basically a system for force and clarity. It takes that chaotic, super ambitious backlog and transforms it into a clear, brutally focused execution order. And, this is key, it takes those vague, scary risks and turns them into actual concrete actions you can take right away.
Now, to really get a handle on triage, you got to see it as two separate parts, and both of them are absolutely critical.
First up, you've got task triage. This is the part most people think of. Deciding what to work on right now and what order to do it in. But the second half, that's the secret weapon, risk triage. This is where you figure out what could totally wreck your plan and, crucially, decide on the very first thing you're going to do about it. See, most teams only do the first half, and that's why they keep getting blindsided by surprises late in the game.
Let's dig into task triage first. A really simple and powerful way to handle it is with 3 buckets. Now is for the stuff that's on the critical path to your next big goal. Next is for valuable work, for sure, but it can wait until the now items are done. And later, well, that's for all those good ideas that just don't make sense to work on today. It sounds basic, but just separating things like this is a game changer.
But here's the absolute #1 rule. You have to cap that now list. A team can only focus on so many things at once. The more work you have in progress, the less work actually gets finished. It's a paradox, but it's true. A fantastic starting point is a top 10 execution list for the week. That's it. Nothing new gets added until something old gets done. It forces focus.
Okay, now for that other half, risk triage. Look, a risk is totally useless if it's just a scary sentence on a spreadsheet. To make a risk something you can actually deal with, it needs 3 things. An owner, someone who's responsible for it, a trigger, a clear signal that tells you it's about to happen, and a first mitigation step, a concrete action that someone can take in the next day or two. This turns vague fear into a clear, immediate plan.
So, enough with the theory. Let's see how this actually works in the real world. Here's a case study of a team that was stuck deep in that busy but slow trap and used triage to pull themselves out.
The situation was a classic. You had a talented team, about 15 people, deep into making a game. Everyone was working their tails off, but every sprint would end with just tons of half-finished tasks. Lots of motion, but very little progress. The pressure was definitely building.
So their first big aha moment was realizing their backlog had become this chaotic daily to-do list. As they put it, nice-to-have improvements set next to critical path work. People were just grabbing whatever felt urgent to them at the moment, not what was actually important for the project as a whole. So they hit the reset button with triage. And just look at the difference here. They went from dozens of active tasks floating around to a single, ruthlessly prioritized top 10 list.
And that list was focused on only one thing, protecting the path to their next milestone. The new rule wasn't, is everyone busy? It was, are we closing work?
And this is where that second half of triage, the risk part, paid off big time. The process forced them to face a really uncomfortable question. Did anyone actually know how the game was performing? Nope. By giving that risk an owner and a first step, they dug in and found a massive performance issue that would have been an absolute catastrophe later on. They fixed it early, when it was still cheap to fix.
And the results? After just 2 weeks, they were undeniable. The amount of work getting done went way up. The build started improving in noticeable chunks every week, which did wonders for team morale. And, a fantastic side effect? Meetings got shorter because the plan was already clear and visible to everyone. The hard decisions were already made.
Okay, so how can you get these kinds of results for your team? Well, the best part is you don't need to roll out some massive, disruptive new process. Seriously, you can start really small, like this week.
Here's a super simple experiment you can run. For just 1 week, do these 3 things. 1. Create a top 10 execution list. 2. List out your top 5 risks and, super important, attach that first mitigation step to each one. And 3. Publish those lists where everyone can see them and lock them in for the week. No changes. That's it. Simple.
Because at the end of the day, what you're really doing here is fighting for focus. And as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with this final thought. Triage gives production back its most valuable resource, attention. See, by forcing yourself to decide what not to do, you free up your team to be laser-focused and effective on the things that actually matter. So think about it. What's the one thing your team needs to stop doing so you can finally start moving forward?
If this is useful, subscribe.
New breakdowns every week.